dementia researcher with a blog and a rating.
Each year, the 21st of June is a special day of recognition and acknowledgement of the impact that motor neuron disease, which we're going to refer to as MND, has on people's lives around the world. Interestingly, this date marks the summer solstice and was selected to symbolise the start of a new year of hope to find the cure for this devastating condition. Hello, my name is Athena and I'm a second-year undergraduate neuroscience student at the University of Dundee. I moved to Scotland from a small island in Greece for the opportunity to study neuroscience, which doesn't exist at undergraduate level back home. I have had my heart set on studying the brain for a while. It was very clear for me since the moment I came to appreciate that the brain is the most intricate collection of atoms in the known universe and really underlies the whole scope of human experience. Here in Dundee, there's a lot of research focused on neurodegeneration, aiming to understand the diseases related to this phenomenon at all different levels, which is why I chose this university specifically. Currently, as part of a vacation scholarship scheme, I am undertaking an internship at Dr Hensridge's lab at the School of Medicine in the University of Dundee. The lab's overarching focus is trying to understand the breakdown of connection points between brain cells in MND in the hope of discovering new ways to treat it. For MND Awareness Day coming up, I feel that it is of uttermost importance to hear directly from the researchers committed to finding out more about the disease, acknowledging that these scientists are the hope for furthering all medical advancements. Being right at the beginning of my scientific career, I'm interested to hear about how others have navigated their own paths in research. To get insight from an experienced researcher I'm working alongside, I will be asking Dr Zsófia László, an MNDA Junior Fellow, a few questions. Hi, Zsófia, could you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi Athena. First of all, thank you so much for preparing this interview with me today, and also for raising awareness of MND, which affects so many people globally. So, I moved to Scotland 4 years ago, right after I completed my PhD. There is an obvious career path for academic researchers. Once you are close to finishing the PhD, you usually look for postdoctoral positions in different labs to gain as much as experience, knowledge, and overall research culture as possible. This usually has the added caveat of relocation to a foreign country. It was a challenging period for everyone that time because the global pandemic was still ongoing. But to find my next lab and make that big step was very scary for me, especially between lockdowns. So I come from a different research field, not encompassing neurodegenerative disease at all, or MND. I started my undergraduate study and then made my PhD in the molecular neurobiology lab in the Institute of Experimental Medicine in Budapest, Hungary. So as you can see, I'm Hungarian. This lab, or my previous lab, along with many others, focuses on the most fragile, and I can say that the most important parts of our consciousness, the connection between neuronal cells, called synapses. So, for proper brain development is impossible, basically, because without these delicate structures, and the information couldn't spread from one neuron to another without the synapses. So you can actually feel how important is that. Although I really enjoyed investigating synapse-related pathways during my PhD, especially during brain growth, helping people became a focus of mine. I wanted to put more effort to understand the kind of brain diseases which affect so many people globally.
Of course, that's very interesting. Something that has intrigued me coming into the lab is that there are so many different people that have ended up in the exact same setting with a very clear shared goal and objective and drive to study this disease. why did you personally choose Dr. Henstridge's lab? And did you have any preconceptions of joining a lab in Scotland?
So, first of all, I found the project advert very exciting, potentially opening up new avenues in the MND field and helping people living with the disease. It was basically the research team what I was looking for. There was also a strong overlap between my PhD work and Chris's research focus, so I was confident that I could contribute to the new lab's research. Regarding the laboratory, I don't really have any preconceptions, to be honest, about the Henstridge lab itself. I knew that it was established in 2019, so basically a year before I applied, a very young lab. During the interviews, everyone was very welcoming and nice. And to be honest, if you want to do good science, you don't need much more than welcoming and supporting environment, although funding should help, to be honest. And also, I knew Chris personally from my undergraduate years in Budapest because he was the first foreign postdoctoral researchers in our lab. So we had been working together for more than 4 years before he came back to Scotland. After I basically accepted the job offer, things had progressed very quickly. I defended my PhD successfully, and 3 days later, we were flying to Scotland with my husband and moved our whole life.
Wow, that must have been quite daunting how fast that happened. I really appreciate your comment about a friendly environment being crucial in order for people to flourish in a new environment and feel content and productive. I myself feel like I could not have hoped for a better place to experience a working lab for the first time. It's a very welcoming environment here at the Henstridge lab, and besides the work aspect, I'm getting a lot of advice about research careers in general. And just overall, it's nowhere near as scary as I expected, and I'm really enjoying it. Meeting people here with all different scientific and cultural backgrounds has made me think about how someone settles on dedicating their life to study one specific disease. So I was wondering, what pushed you to want to study this type of disease and focus on neurodegeneration in particular?
So yeah, it sounds cliche, but I read a couple of Stephen Hawking's book when I was teenager and younger. I don't want to say young because I'm still young. And I was always amazed about his research, his concepts about how the universe works. On the other hand, I was also wondering how difficult it could be to be one of the greatest minds of or mankind and imprisoned in his own body because of the disease. So it was an additional aspect is that when I met with my husband, he also told me that one of his close relatives died due to ALS, which is the most common form of motor neuron disease. And he described how difficult it was to witness someone lose their freedom of movement and capabilities day by day until the end. Therefore, I got some insight into, even if not personally, into a career relative perspective, which made me even more motivated to apply for this postdoctoral position at the Henstridge lab.
Yeah, it is beautiful how people's stories, especially when expressed through art, have a way of touching you and making you think of your own life in a different light. I have found inspiration from people's lives and their art as well, and if I had to pinpoint my biggest source of inspiration for studying the brain, it would absolutely be the book The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, which explores how people's different experiences or perspectives on life have a neurological basis. Also, specifically, my inspiration for studying the neurodegenerative diseases was the book Awakenings, about an incredible clinical trial. And both of those books are by my hero and, who I could only wish to be like Dr. Oliver Sacks.
Yeah, amazing book.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very very accessible, very clear.
Excellent.
Going back to your career, currently, what is your specific area of interest in researching MND?
So, as you mentioned in your introduction, the Hands-Ridge Lab overall focusing on the molecular and cellular aspects of the connection loss between the neurons, what I already mentioned, the synapses. So, this decrease in synapses is associated with a change in thinking skills in motor neuron disease. My project specifically investigates the effect of glial cells on synapse loss, so more like a cellular interaction. Glial cells are important participants of the brain function by maintaining the health and health of other brain cells. So if you think about how a good hotel works, there are different departments which are all responsible for making your stay as perfect and smooth as possible. If the housekeeping is not working well, all room and common areas will be messy. If the chef cannot prepare the dinner, there won't be anything to eat. If there is no one at the reception to call or the phone is out of order, we cannot basically complain. Therefore, our overall holiday will be ruined. So, in our brain, glial cells are the housekeeping and the kitchen department. If they are affected by the brain disease, they cannot serve neurons and their synapses anymore. Moreover, in neurodegenerative diseases, glial cells turn from supporters to enemies and negatively affect the survival of the neurons by engulfing synapses. So basically, these synapses is not just breaking down because of the disease, but because of the cellular interactions. And I aim to examine how glial cells react to MND-affected synapses, how we can target glia to decrease the ingestion of these synapses and ultimately basically prevent neuronal loss.
That's a very good analogy with the hotel, because the brain really is a collaboration of different cell types to achieve all of the functions. And yeah, I understand how your research to understand the role of glia in engulfing synapses that, are necessary for brain function, how that is critical for understanding how MND could be treated. And what I would be interested to know specifically is how you reached that research aim.
Sure. So, interestingly, nearly half of the people living with MND show some form of change in cognitive skills, as well as problems with the movement. So, the toxic effect of glial cells has been already shown in other neurodegenerative diseases, and some interesting pathways have been already targeted. We would like to know if the same approach can be applied to MND and if this could lead to a development of new drugs to treat it.
Yeah, and during your research on this topic, is there what have you already achieved?
So in the first year of my postdoctoral research, just right after I arrived in Scotland and basically between lockdowns, I was able to show that glial cells can send signals on the ALS synapses which make them predestined for engulfment. Basically, to fund my research, because that's how we researchers work, I applied for different charities and fellowships, and this also comes with a kind of like the academic path. So as researchers need to find support for investigating the most important questions, this which often cost a huge amount of money, these fellowships are very prestigious funding awards that basically allow the holder to focus all of their time on a specific research topic. However, that's because the competition is enormous. So, for example, in my case, I applied at least 5 different organization charities with my project ideas, and some of them I got amazing feedbacks, but I basically went to the interview round with only one association, which I was honored to be selected by, and that's the Motor Neuron Disease Association. And I basically was honored with a Lady Edith Wilson Junior Fellowship, which now fully supports my project for 3 years. So the fact that my research idea warranted support gave me tremendous amount of motivation, of course, not in small part because they choose me, who was new in the MND field at the time, but also I was the first one in Scotland who secured this type of fellowship.
Wow, yeah, I'm aware that it's very competitive and it feels like kind of an impossible task and not always hopeful, but that's a huge recognition of your work and congratulations for that. Could you please expand on the impact you would hope your research to have?
So I hope that we can find the molecular mechanism behind the synapse loss and identify new targets, which for further drug discovery and therapeutic treatment. And this could prove to be life-changing for people living with the disease. So I think that's the overall big aim of us.
Yeah. So about the MND field in general, is there anything that you find particularly exciting at the moment?
Yeah, so recently I had a very amazing experience in one of the MND conferences. So one very exciting development on the field is the positive outcome of personalized gene therapy. This type of treatment is basically in the later stages of clinical trial process. So personalized gene therapy means that researchers can engineer specific molecules to silence the target gene. In the most recent example, what I heard in that conference was the FAST gene. So the mutation in FAST gene usually causes juvenile ALS, a highly progressive type of MND manifesting in children and young adults. In the last couple of years, basically researchers tested these engineered molecules in several animal models with very positive outcome, and then followed by a clinical trial starting in 2020. When we were in Barcelona in 2023 at the European ALS conference, Dr. Neil Schneider from the US, a leader neurologist of the team, showed amazing results of a juvenile ALS patient. So Kanash was just only 16 at the time of diagnosis, and thankfully in 2 months her treatment started. As the disease progressed, she was hospitalized and partially paralyzed, but the novel treatment was able to reverse the process, and today she can stand up and walk again, which is amazing. And moreover, when we were in the last International ALS FDD conference in Basel, Switzerland, she took the stage by herself for an introduction. It was amazing. It was unbelievably touching moment I will never forget. So I hope this personalized treatment soon will be available for other people as well living with the disease and regardless of age.
Wow, I mean, as an experience, that sounds very unforgettable, as you said.
Yes, it was. It really was. The whole audience was applauding, and everyone was basically in tears.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, and the personalized gene therapy does sound very promising, as it is, especially for each case. Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that is just unforgettable. Do you have more experience interacting with people affected by MND?
So, yeah, these conferences, what I just mentioned, basically provide opportunities for people living with the disease and their carers to participate and learn about the latest scientific achievements or endeavors aiding to fight against the disease. So, in addition, our lab is also a part of a trial program in Scotland which aims to bring the researchers and patients closer in a very friendly environment, creating basically a platform to ask questions about the disease and gain insight into the everyday life of a researcher and how a research lab basically works.
Yeah, that's a great initiative. It sounds like a really valuable interaction both ways.
Yeah.
And you personally, what do you feel that you gained from these meetings?
So meeting with people living with the disease is very important for me, because this gives me a massive amount of motivation, especially on those days when an experiment failed or we hit a seemingly impossible roadblock. So we just need to keep trying and find new ways over and over again. And these meetings are such a unique opportunities for us researchers. And personally, I'm very grateful for these people living with the disease, for their openness for programs such as this. That's a great initiative, to be honest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can imagine it is just motivating to meet and hear from the very people you are working to help. Prior to starting here in the lab, I was, I can say now, unnecessarily worried about how in a, proper lab, real researchers, how you would approach experimentation, because all I knew was a very tightly scheduled, timed, teaching lab space with not much room for error or deviation or anything. But I've found everyone working here and at all levels in their career to be very passionate about the work they're doing and very happy to talk about it, which I appreciate because I love finding out what everyone's doing. But something that surprised me actually is the variety of cultural backgrounds that even a small lab in a small city in Scotland has. I think that's really nice. And just interesting to think about how people have the same exact passion and drive and have found themselves in the same place from all over the world. And yeah, just to finish off, I would like to ask if you have any advice for someone aspiring to have a career studying NMD, such as myself.
So, yeah, I think the key is to be motivated and find an environment where you feel motivated. To be a researcher means that you need to handle so many ups and downs, failed concepts and experiments. And apart from being resilient, to continue the research on the hardest day, you need to have constant support from your colleagues. So if the aim is basically the same, it is always easier to move forward. And I think that's the most important, to find those people somewhere in the world who can actually support you and motivate you, because then you can achieve anything.
Yeah, I understand that that's a huge part. You can't be completely discouraged if something goes wrong, and you have to be reminded of why you're doing this, which, as you said, that, remembering why you're doing this by meeting people that you're trying to help. Yeah, very important to, stay and try again if something goes wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, also I found it fascinating that researchers with all different backgrounds approach with the same aim, approach a problem with their unique expertise and experiences. And what I have understood is that this is the diversity that allows for a team to then come together and have the best possible skill set and the diverse approaches to tackle a shared goal. And that's the most valuable thing. That's why diversity is important. And yeah, it has been very interesting today and very motivational for myself as a future neuroscientists to chat with Dr. László just now. And I'd like to thank you for doing this and answering my questions. And
that was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And also thank you for raised awareness of MND and all those people who are behind, not just from the NHS, but the carers as well. Very, very important people, not just researchers, but they are in the everyday basis with people living with the disease. So thank you so much for them as well.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for listening. Join the dementia research bloggers and share your own views.